Fear-mongering. Fear-mongering is a propaganda technique that involves creating or exaggerating fear around a particular issue to manipulate people's emotions and behavior. This approach aims to convince individuals to support specific policies, take certain actions, or adopt particular viewpoints by playing on their anxieties and fears. Often used in political campaigns, media coverage, and advertising, fear-mongering can distort the truth and lead to panic or irrational decision-making. A classic example of fear-mongering occurred during the lead-up to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Politicians and media outlets frequently emphasized the threat posed by Saddam Hussein, claiming he possessed weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, that could be used against the U.S. or its allies. This rhetoric stirred public fear and urgency, ultimately influencing support for military action. When no WMDs were found, the fear-mongering tactics were criticized for manipulating public sentiment and leading to a controversial war. Disinformation. Disinformation is the intentional spread of false or misleading information to deceive people. This propaganda technique aims to manipulate public perception, create confusion, or undermine trust in specific individuals, organizations, or events. Disinformation can take many forms, including fabricated news articles, manipulated images, or misleading statistics. It is often used by governments, political groups, or organizations to achieve strategic objectives by shaping narratives that benefit their agendas. A notable example of disinformation occurred during the 2016 U.S. presidential election when various fake news stories circulate on social media platforms. One particularly notorious article claimed that a specific political candidate was involved in a human trafficking ring operating out of a pizzeria. This false narrative gained traction and led to real-world consequences, including threats and violence. The spread of disinformation like this highlighted the dangers of misleading information in the digital age and its impact on public discourse and safety. Emotional appeals. Emotional appeals are a propaganda technique that targets people's feelings rather than relying on logical arguments or factual evidence. By evoking strong emotions such as fear, joy, sadness, or anger, this method aims to persuade individuals to adopt certain beliefs, support specific policies, or take action. Emotional appeals can be particularly effective in advertising, political campaigns, and social movements, as they create a personal connection with the audience and drive them to respond emotionally rather than rationally. A well-known example of emotional appeals is the Save the Children campaign, which uses heart-wrenching images of impoverished children to elicit sympathy and compassion. Advertisements often feature compelling stories of suffering, urging viewers to donate to help those in need. By tapping into the audience empathy, these campaigns effectively encourage people to contribute financially, demonstrating how emotional appeals can powerfully influence behavior and generate support for important causes. Bandwagon appeal. Bandwagon appeal is a propaganda technique that encourages individuals to adopt a belief or take action because everyone else is doing it. This approach plays on the human tendency to conform and be part of a group, suggesting that if a majority supports something, it must be the right choice. Bandwagon appeals can be seen in advertising, political campaigns, and social movements, often aiming to create a sense of urgency or fear of missing out. A classic example of bandwagon appeal can be seen in political campaigns, especially during elections. For instance, a candidate might highlight polls showing that they are leading in popularity or that many influential figures endorse them. The messaging often emphasizes phrases like, "Join the millions who support Kamala Harris." This tactic aims to create a perception of widespread support, enticing undecided voters to back the candidate simply because others are doing so, rather than based on individual beliefs or policies. Testimonials. Testimonials are a propaganda technique that involves using endorsements from satisfied customers, experts, or celebrities to promote a product, service, or idea. This approach relies on the credibility and trustworthiness of the individuals providing the testimonials, as their positive experiences are meant to persuade others to adopt the same view or take action. Testimonials can enhance the perceived value of a product or political candidate by creating a personal connection and validating the claims made. A common example of testimonials can be seen in weight loss advertisements. Many commercials feature real people who share their success stories after using a specific diet program or supplement. For instance, a testimonial might include a person stating, "I lost 30 pounds in 3 months with this weight loss shake and feel more energetic than ever." By showcasing relatable success stories, these ads aim to convince potential customers that they too can achieve similar results, thus driving sales and interest in the product. Name calling. Name calling is a propaganda technique that involves using derogatory language to undermine an individual, group, or opposing viewpoint. This tactic aims to provoke negative emotions and create a bias against the subject by labeling them with unfavorable terms. Name-calling often distracts from logical arguments or facts, instead relying on emotional reactions to sway public opinion. It is frequently seen in political campaigns, debates, and media discourse. A well-known instance of name-calling can be observed in political debates, where candidates often label their opponents with negative epithets. For example, one candidate might refer to their rival as out of touch or radical to paint them in a negative light. Such labels are designed to evoke disdain or distrust among voters, encouraging them to view the opponent as unworthy of support. By focusing on names rather than policies, name-calling seeks to influence opinions through emotional manipulation rather than rational discussion. Glittering generalities. Glittering generalities are a propaganda technique that uses vague, emotionally appealing phrases to evoke positive feelings without providing specific information or evidence. This approach relies on broad statements that sound good but lack substance, making them difficult to challenge or analyze critically. Glittering generalities are commonly found in political speeches, advertising, and promotional materials, aiming to create a favorable impression of a person, product, or idea. A classic example of glittering generalities can be seen in political campaign slogans. For instance, a candidate might use a slogan like "Building a Better Tomorrow" to convey hope and progress. While the phrase sounds appealing and optimistic, it lacks details about how the candidate plans to achieve this vision. By using such catchy and uplifting language, the candidate aims to inspire voters and generate support without committing to specific policies or actions. This technique plays on emotions, encouraging people to rally behind an attractive but vague message. Repetition. Repetition is a propaganda technique that involves repeatedly presenting a message to reinforce its acceptance and memorability. By continuously exposing audiences to the same idea, phrase, or slogan, this method aims to embed the message in their minds, making it more likely to influence their thoughts and behaviors. Repetition is effective because it can create familiarity, making the audience more comfortable with the message and more inclined to accept it. A well-known example of repetition can be found in advertising campaigns. For instance, a popular soda brand might use the slogan "Open Happiness" in multiple commercials, social media posts, and promotional materials. By consistently repeating this phrase, the brand creates a strong association between their product and positive emotions. Over time, consumers become more likely to remember the slogan, and as a result, choose that soda over competitors when making a purchase. This technique demonstrates how repetition can effectively shape consumer behavior and preferences. Astroturfing. Astroturfing is a propaganda technique that involves creating a fake grassroots movement to give the impression of widespread public support for a particular agenda, product, or political issue. Unlike genuine grassroots efforts, which arise organically from the community, astroturfing is often orchestrated by organizations or corporations to manipulate public perception and influence decision-making. This tactic can undermine authentic activism by making it difficult for people to distinguish between real and fabricated support. A notable example of astroturfing occurred during the debate over climate change legislation. Some fossil fuel companies created fake social media accounts and websites that appeared to represent local community groups opposing environmental regulations. These fake accounts shared messages that claimed regulations would hurt jobs and the economy, giving the impression of widespread grassroots opposition. By manufacturing this false support, the companies aim to sway public opinion and policymakers, showcasing how astroturfing can distort genuine conversations around important issues.